Greetings, this is the Grumpy Old Slan, and today we're going to take a quick look at The Planet Explorer by Murray Leinster. This is a series of 4 stories featuring the same character throughout his career in the Colonial Survey Service. And their job is to basically go to planets, make sure colonies are set up properly, scout the planets. Once a colony is set up, they will make sure things are progressing properly so that people can live there safely and so on. Now, these stories were initially published in Astounding Science Fiction in the December 1955 issue, the March 1956 issue, the July 56, and the September 56 issue. Now, except for this issue, each of those stories is the cover story. Chronologically, this is the first story, although it was the third one to be published. And this is the third one. It was the second to be published. This is the... Wait, let me check. Did I get this right? Yeah. This is the second story. This is the third story. This is the first story. The fourth story is in here. So, yeah. Each one is on a different planet, as you can see. And so the first story, he's starting up in his career in the Colonial Service. He's unsure of himself. He's there to inspect what they call a landing grid, which is this huge structure that can use magnetic fields or force fields of some sort to capture spaceships in orbit and land them on the surface of the planet without using rocket fuel, which is expensive. And it means that more cargo can be transported that way. It's an ice planet. As he's there, they discover that the heat from the sun is reduced, things are going to get worse, and they have to try and find a solution to stay alive. And upping the stakes is the fact that this is actually the second planet being colonized in this star system. The first one being a more temperate one, but will also be facing an ice age. And so he needs to find a solution to this. The second story is set on a desert planet. And there the problem is that a huge sandstorm that lasted for weeks has buried the landing grid, which means it's also their source of power. The colony has very limited power resources. They can't land ships anymore. So he has to try and find a solution for that. The third story, he actually is supposed to inspect the colony. Unbeknownst to him, the colony has been destroyed by local wildlife, which is particularly ferocious. And instead, he lands himself elsewhere on the planet where an illegal colony has been set up. And this illegal colony consists of one man and modified Kodiak bears and an eagle, also modified. The bears are strong enough to fight off the wildlife if needed. When a man finds out he's with the Colonial Survey, he figures he's going to get arrested. But he does agree to go to the original colony, which they have to walk to. They find that there's a handful of survivors, and they manage to contact the outside world and be rescued. He will use his influence to finagle things so that the bears don't get destroyed, the eagle doesn't get killed, and the man keeps his freedom. And then the fourth story concerns a planet where the only land masses are a very large island in temperate zones and a landmass in the polar ice cap, which is of course very cold. The only place that's actually being colonized is that large island. Unfortunately, the island on one end is one big mile-high cliff, and then it's a slow slope down to the ocean on the other side, and over-irrigation has caused the land to be very unstable and to risk sliding off into the ocean at any time, bringing everyone with them. He has to try and solve that problem. Now, the solutions are very 50s science fiction. You find a solution, it instantly solves the problem kind of thing. The characters are fairly well developed for the time. There's also a few paragraphs between each stories that were added in this book to tell the story of this man's life when he's not on these adventures. And as the stories progress, he also rises in rank in the Colonial Survey. One interesting thing about the second adventure in the Sand Planet was the unbelievable sandstorm that lasted for weeks, which we now know this happens regularly on Mars. So that was an interesting bit of prescience there on the part of the author. If you like classic space opera adventure tales, I highly recommend Murray Leinster in general, and this book in particular. This has been the Grumpy Old Slan, looking at The Planet Explorer by Murray Leinster.